Hi, everyone. So glad you're able to join Pretty Yende's talk today. I'm Elena Park. I have the great honor and pleasure of being the series director for San Francisco Opera's In Song series. And Pretty's is the seventh one thus far and the most ambitious one to date. And I just wanted to say thank you from all of us to the Creative Edge Fund that makes these programs possible. They allowed us to kind of trace Pretty's journey through her homeland in South Africa, kind of dipping into her home community in Piet Retief and then following her to Cape Town. And I saw a video interview with Pretty where she once said, if I had the means, I would bring the world to Piet Retief. So we haven't gotten on a plane, but we've done a version of bringing you to see her community and her family. So as you probably well know, this is tied to Pretty's magnificent debut at San Francisco Opera as Violetta, which we'll have a chance to talk about. And I just wanted to say that when Matthew Shilvak and Greg Henkel suggested that the next one be Pretty Yende, it was 1,000 times yes from everybody who was involved. And we had an army on the ground in South Africa, headed up by my co-director, Maro Vashangwe, who's from Zimbabwe but lives in South Africa, and our two amazing producers, Nicole Potter on the ground here in the States, and Warren McCarthy and Seed Media. So we're going to play you a little bit of the beginning of the feature, and then Pretty will join me.
All right. Okay, we have been visited by an international singer, the former student of Ndlela Secondary School. So ula today ukuthi sonke sithathe iphethini kuye ukuthi there is something that you can do. You can go far with your music. Her name is Pretty Yende. Pretty Yende.
When you dream, nobody actually tells you all the details of that dream. It's like a house just being a skeleton, and you have to be the person who grows into governing the house.
Can I sing with you? Yes. I think you'd know it, actually.
If I want to be part of something this extraordinary, there's something that needs to change in me. I have to grow even more, to govern the gifts, to govern what's to come.
Okay, let me welcome Pretty Yende.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm blessed. I am happy to have this conversation and to have everybody here today because we had to reschedule it. So I'm very excited we are able to do this right now.
Well, I know you've been super busy. You have 3 performances under your belt and so many demands on your time. And so it's so wonderful to spend a little time with you today. And we'll have a chance to get some questions from the audience as well. So,
awesome.
You know, the opening of the feature, when people saw it, they said it literally gave them chills. Somebody said they started to cry when they saw you with all those beautiful children at the school where you were raised and grew up. What was it like for you to go back there to do this episode?
It was the most incredible way of being given a chance to look back and be grateful for a remarkable journey from a girl who just took a leap of faith on something extraordinary and something that was in her, but she was not aware that it was, but willing girl to find out and explore what was it. And thankfully, there was truly something inside her. And now we are able to enjoy this remarkable Pretty journey. I was filled with so many tears of gratitude and joy as I worked through with my parents, hearing their conversations, going to my school and seeing those beautiful kids whom I felt such compassion. And I cried a lot with them, actually, because I felt like when I was looking at them, they felt like goodness and success belong to some. And I wanted to assure them that, no, it's not true. I was just where you are not so long ago. And look what my dream has been able to afford me. In your very same soil, in your very same corner, you too, your dream can come true. So it was truly something that I was very grateful that San Francisco Opera allowed me this great opportunity to make even this debut such momentous in a way.
Oh, that's fantastic. You know, when you look back on the girl there wearing that uniform, I mean, in the opening clip, the editor, Steve Mallorca, who it was a labor of love for him to work on this and tell your story, he loved that part where you say that I have to grow to govern the gifts and what's to come. What were you dreaming about? What world did you imagine was even possible at that moment, or when you look back?
When I look back, it's impossible to clearly say the details because I did not have details. All I had was faith on something extraordinary and the curiosity of finding out and wanting to know, the eagerness of wanting to know what it was. So as the journey continued, I realized, or I am being taught to know that it's one thing to dream and another thing to walk the journey of making that dream physically exist in our world. And that means dreams are so unlimited and they don't make human sense because they come from the spirit and from the soul. And so the physical body and the physical person has to grow into governing that magnificence. I think that's what I meant.
Well, we want to take a look and meet your mentors and the church elders and your parents. So I'll meet you on the other side.
Qhubekile ke sikhonza uNkulunkulu nayo uPretty ngama-90s esemncane. Umndeni wakubo bokhonza ebandleni sukela kugogo wakhe kumkhulu wakhe kuze kuzofika kuye namndeni wonke nje wakayende.
Hayi, umndeni wakwaYende umndeni omuhle kakhulu. Esithembele thina ebandla lala ekhaya eNazarene kuwo kakhulu.
Umama ugogo kaPretty wayeuthanda kakhulu umculo.
Bahlala behlabelela sonke isikhathi.
Ya bebahamba beya esontweni. Bebahamba u 5 kilometers.
Your parents were so dear, and the church elders, and everyone was full of joy to talk about you and to recall what you were like as a girl and what you're like as a woman now. They just spoke of you with such love and generosity, but I think you know that.
Yes.
So your father was just talking about his mother, who you took those walks to and from church, and 3 miles each way. So 6 miles you would journey to go to church with your grandma. What do you remember about those walks with her?
I remember wanting to please my grandma, to want to make her happy. I remember finding joy in giving another person joy in whatever little I can do. And I remember her love for music and her confidence in teaching me how to sing. And I remember our relationship. It was very short because I was very young then, but when I look back, I truly remember also her suffering with her health, with asthma. Hence, we had to take so many breaks in between. But I remember her as an amazing woman. I'm a firstborn at home, so I had her, and then who gave birth to my dad, and then I had my grandmother who gave birth to my mom. So I truly had them as my mothers in a way. In a way, in South Africa, we say that that firstborns are truly firstborns to the grandmothers. So truly, when I heard my dad talking, I realized that she was truly a person who was very passionate about music. And she wanted to share that with me. And little did I know that it was also medically something that was truly advised for people who were suffering with asthma, that music can help them to ease, you know, the suffering from asthma. So she knew it then.
And you told me that that dusty road where you'd walk in back is where you think Pretty the singer was born.
I believe it's so true. It's so true. Even if I didn't have the full conception of what was to come, but those evenings every night with my family and hearing music, and my grandmother teaching me, or helping me to become me, you know, planting those seeds of music in the church, truly, because the joy that I got eventually, because at the beginning I was very terrified. Maybe I'm still terrified, but I wanted not to disappoint her. So I would say, even if this feels uncomfortable, but I will do it for my grandmother. But then when I did it in the church and I saw the joy in the people, then I was like, I love this. I would love to do this. And little did I know that those very seeds are truly the roots that are very significant in every performance that I do, because then the stage, the global stage, became a home for me, for my soul, for my spirit, and for my gift to flourish and have life more than my insecurities and my vulnerabilities.
You said that you were very shy as a girl. It's hard to believe because you're so radiant and effusive, but do you think music was the key to having you come into your own and knowing that you had things to share with the world?
I think that as human beings, we succumb to things that feel uncomfortable and we think that they are us, but they're not us. Mm-hmm. I think even though I can say I was shy, but my being, my true being, and our true being as human beings is brave, bold, and joyous, and full of love, and full of light. So this platform and my journey as an opera singer has allowed me to have that privilege of exercising those principalities that are our true essence as human beings.
And now, what is it about the women in your family? Because your mother very proudly said that she sings, and I know your sister is an opera singer as well.
Yes. Music is a very, very, very powerful entity for the human being. And as South Africans, I don't know how I can even try to explain it in words, but I would say that the connection that always happens from one soul to another soul in each and every corner of the world is a true testament that truly this amazing gift for humanity is for us. And you cannot find words to explain it, but be filled with immense gratitude because it is ours.
Yes. Well, let's watch the clip that shows when you kind of heard opera and this moment that changed your life. But before we hear that, I just want to know, I know you have two brothers who we did not meet because they were not in Piet Retief at the time. Do they sing as well?
They do sing. So when the firstborn was crazy about music, it sort of went down. So every one of us, me, my brother, my sister, and my other brother, we then all, in a way, we were part of a school choir at some point. But then our love for classical music is blooming for me and my sister. And my brothers, for them, they like the more pop, so DJ kind of making music. So yeah, it's a musical melange in my family.
Room in the tent for all kinds of music. All right, well,
Yeah.
let's take a look at the clip where you first discovered opera.
So the very first time I heard opera, actually, it was 2001. I believe it was British Airways advert, and they used the Lakme duet from the Leap. Just those few 10 seconds. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. My brain was like, what? My heart was like, yes, finally. We can move forward with life.
She came to me, asked, what kind of music is that? What does that say? I told her it's opera.
So then he advised me to join the school choir. And I sang with a very, very, very small voice. So when Mr. Sitole heard those very first, sounds, he said, do you really think that you can be an opera singer, with that small voice? And he was correct, because I didn't know how to sing that way. But something had changed in me. I started coming home and searching on the radio to find classical music.
Thanks to your mother for finding that shot of you as a girl in your school uniform.
I know, when I look back, I'm like, oh my God, so much has changed since then.
So this moment where you heard this, and then, you asked Mr. Sitole all about this, how did you, it seems to have been this pivotal moment. And I read an interview once where you were talking about not knowing that one could be touched by something like that, much less create something like that that could move people. How well do you remember that moment in your life?
I always remember it. I think in every core of my being, that moment, even if when I look back and when I thought back of the British Airways adverts, I could not remember seeing the picture, but I can always, in every essence of my being, even right at this moment, remember the sound and the awakening that happened at that moment. And I come from a family that is so huge in sharing. And I love sharing and I love loving. So when I heard it, the first instinct, even if intellectually I could not perceive it, but my being said, oh my God, I wish I can have somebody feel this. How can I share this with somebody? Hence, I went to Mr. Sitole, and when he told me it was humanly possible, I was like, what? It's not supernatural? Well, it is supernatural, but human beings can do it. So then I thought, my grandmother taught me to sing. Surely, if Mr. Sitole can teach me to sing, I can do this. And when I think about it more often than not, I realize that sound is powerful. Mm-hmm. And this platform allows me to share it in this way. And I'm so grateful for that moment.
But you said not that you had a small voice, but you had a very, very, very small voice. And some of the posts online, there was a singer, a baritone, who said, oh my gosh, I can't believe you had a small voice, and it gave him hope and confidence. How were you able to develop your instrument?
I believe that from that point onwards, I had a pretty army, as I call them, hashtag, of people who would, how can I say it? Who would let me know my true identity as a human being, from Mr. Sitole, from Virginia Davids, from my parents, from my pastors, my apostles, and the people who continuously remind me who I am. I believe that as I thought I was shy but when you take that away, the gift is truly magnificent. And they are always there to remind me of that. Hence, I believe I found confidence of becoming me or governing me.
Now, we are not seeing this clip today, but your father and your mother recounted how shocked they were when you said, I'm not going to be an accountant, even though you had the scholarships and everything. I'm going to be a singer. So how was that tension like? Because they were worried that you would train and not be able to find work.
Yes, It was very tough because already there was an option for going to study for accountancy because I was top student, the first female actually in that year, because each year in the school, you would have like the top students and there had always been boys. And that particular year, for the first time, it was a girl, and that girl was pretty. And she was afforded a scholarship to go study accountancy. But her heart was saying, no, I've been touched by something extraordinary and I want to find out. And I have to thank my parents because it felt, or it actually was, that they had to have faith with me, together, and for me. Hence, if it hadn't been for my dad's words saying, Pretty, if you feel that this is good, then go for it. Hence the long drive from Piet Retief, about 18 hours on a car to Cape Town, because no one in my family had been to university and I had never been away from home. So truly, I have to be very grateful to both of them.
Your father told us, he said, I'm going to quote him, he said, "You can tell it's a blessed voice. I realized God was starting to make her stand out."
Oh.
So we now enter kind of the Cape Town chapter of your story, where we meet Virginia Davids and Angela Gobato. So let's take a look at the next clip, and then we can talk about what awaited you there in Cape Town.
All right.
Virginia Davids, we call her Mama V. I was very grateful to have her as a voice teacher because she was a pioneer herself. You know, she was one of the first Black women to actually have an international career. But then at the time, she decided to come back to South Africa and to teach, and to our benefit.
You know, in South Africa, things are very unequal, or were very unequal, and still are. So she wasn't at a school where there was sophisticated music education, but Pretty just waltzed in with no formal background besides what she had in the school choir. So that is actually an amazing story.
And she walked on stage and she opened her mouth, and I turned to Virginia Davids and we said to each other, this is an angel's voice.
The last part of that was the aria from La Rondine, and I'm glad that this is available online so you can catch up with all of the parts of the story and see the full aria. Pretty, what a voice. I mean, you were so young, the instrument was glorious. I mean, one of the things that Virginia told us, Mama V, was that you came to her as a clean slate. She said what was amazing was that the voice was fresh and you had no bad habits. And she also said you were like a sponge.
It's true. It's true. And it's so funny because then I felt like I was not adequate enough, because if I had had those bad habits, which I thought were magnificent, I probably wouldn't have had the privilege of actually staying in the core of my primal sound. Many people have commented that they can recognize my gift, they can recognize my voice, that's Pretty. And that is a trait that is so significant in any performer, and that actually defined the golden age, because you could recognize one artist from the next. And I was very, very fortunate to have had that, because in a way, as I felt like I was disadvantaged, but no, actually, I was truly much advantaged.
Speaking of that, Virginia said that it was kind of far-fetched for someone from Piet Retief to come in and just believe that this opera career could be hers. So when you talk about disadvantaged, you had such confidence in your dream. Virginia remembers that you called her up and you told her that you were going to come study with her. And she said, usually the students get there and then it's decided with whom they study. Do you remember having the moxie to just be like, her, I need to study with her, and giving her that phone call?
I think there has always been an eagerness of possibility in my being, even without my conscious. And so I remember when I talked to Mr. Sithole, I didn't ask him to teach me. I demanded to be taught. Mm-hmm. So there was just that powerness in me that's always been with me and continues to be with me. And I think it's truly because of the joy that I feel is in me. And I would like this joy to be shared as explosively and graciously and lovingly with anyone. And so I believe that more than confidence, I believe that it was that mustard seed of faith into the unknown in a way.
I heard this interview that you did where if people came and said, this isn't possible, you shouldn't think about this or that, you just said, teach me.
Exactly. Yes.
And I feel that's such an important thing, because I think sometimes people come with preconceptions about what one should be doing, what is right for you, what is going to make you successful. But somehow I think you have a drive and a core, a clarity that leads you in a certain direction.
Absolutely, because I'm a Christian, and that for me is my true backbone of my faith and my being. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know anything else. So everything truly exudes in that mustard seed of just wanting goodness and wanting to be part of goodness and sharing that goodness. And truly, I've always said this, opera singing or any kind of being is faith.
Anything that requires the level of discipline and stamina and love and everything that you're able to do, it's for us who cannot do it but just can appreciate it. It's such a gift that you share. We have one person who's written in saying, as a fellow South African, I am thrilled with your talent and beautiful singing. Attending the performance next Sunday evening. Aubrey A. Lurie, MD.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
I know some people are also tuning in from South Africa. We tried to do this at a time where people there would still be awake, because it,
yeah.
California time is 10 p.m. South African time. So about Virginia Davids and Angela Gobato, Jose Diaz, the beautiful, beautiful pianist who accompanied you in the Donizetti L'Amor Funesto, who we see a little bit of those that music in the feature. He calls them the towering figures in South African opera history. And so when he watched the feature, he was very, very glad that they were featured. Can you tell us a little bit about each of them and their role, which was so pivotal in your country?
It was absolutely extraordinary. I remember most interviews that I've done as a South African, I've always been asked about this question about apartheid. And I would say, I don't know it. I truly don't know it, mainly because I was born after the apartheid. And then I was also cushioned by my parents, protected in a way, not to limit my dreams, my impossible dreams, just because I'm different. But what Angelo Gobato did, he gave an extraordinary possibility for each and every Black child at the time in South Africa as an Italian to say they too have the right to be on the global stage with their gifts and calling. And I'm going to make it a mandate to say to the South African government, allow them to be. So in a way, I am a fruit of that dream. Hence, he has accompanied me ever since then for my debut in La Scala or at the Metropolitan Opera House or in Paris, because in a way, Angelo is that person who taught me not only about the difficulties of being a Black able and gifted South African in opera, but also as somebody who believed in that child and continues to be. And also, he taught me how to be an artist. He taught me different kinds of art making as an Italian himself. He taught me, and then I said, he gave me possibilities. I can either be the most perfect singing sound performer, or there's another world that goes beyond that, that touches the soul, and that soul is no longer the same. It might be imperfectly perfect, but that connection is so profound. And I said, I want to be that singer. I don't want you to just hear me singing beautiful or look beautiful or be acclaimed critically. I want to take care of your soul. I want my gift to cushion you, to love you, because we are love. And then, of course, Virginia Davids taught me about accepting my gift. Because when I came to UCT, I felt like I didn't belong. I felt like, no, my gift, I can't sing like them. They are more perfect than me. But she said, show me your hands. And I was like, they're too long and whatever. And then she's like, stop, wait, let's start here. Each and every finger of completing the hand is perfect. And it is valid. So as you acknowledge other gifts, open your gift as well of box that you've just discovered. It is valid. And so they taught me truly the fundamentals of my being as, as I continue to minister sound on the global stage.
And she was, Virginia Davids was your voice teacher and coach. What was your relationship like in terms of learning roles and studying and languages and repertoire?
It was very significant, so much so because she herself had had an experience as a performer. Mm-hmm. So her teaching was not artificial, it was human. And if I would come to my lesson, and when I would walk into the studio and she would see my demeanor, that she doesn't have a smile with her, because everybody who knows me, when all is well, it is in my smile. When that is missing, we must find out where is Pretty. So the teachings were not so, they were not inhuman, they were human. And this is not just me, each and every student in UCT, they felt that we were not only groomed as artists, but we were cushioned as human beings with gifts and callings.
Mm. One of my favorite scenes in the film is you singing through "He Shall Feed His Flock" with her at the piano, and you're just laughing, and she says, hearing you did my soul good, and just seeing you together, it's just this beautiful moment. I know that they were instrumental in developing all your gifts, and then Angelo talks about how he was intent to get you onto the next good place, so you ended up at the place in La Scala in the Academy, where you were able to study with Mirella Freni. What was that like? And also, she used to say something to you about the shape of your mouth. Is that right?
It is so right. I then won the big competition at the time in Vienna, the Belvedere competition. And I did not win 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 prizes, but I won more than 15 prizes. And it was like—
it was the only time that had ever happened where you won the first in every category. Yeah.
It was extraordinary because that competition was also sponsored for me. And I had said in my accountant's mindset that if I could get a family to sponsor me to go to Europe, a return ticket, and then that would be much cheaper. And I thought entering competitions can allow me that possibility. So when I entered those competitions, I was not competing at all. Hence, I think that's what happened, because I was not competing. I was just presenting what I had just found and was asking the global stage, is this worthy? Anyways, long story short, one of those prizes was the invitation to La Scala. And I had to choose between La Scala, Zurich, and Germany. And then at the time when I won the competition, everybody, all agents, they came to me, we're gonna make you a star. You're gonna be a star. And I was like, no, I don't wanna be a star. I want to know how to use this at its utmost possibility. And I want to be able to be responsible, to make sound decisions, because ultimately my managers, the Pretty Army, they don't have the responsibility to make the decisions. I have the responsibility for that. So long story short, I chose to go to Italy because I thought I would not be recognized as a star. That way I can grow, I could learn languages, and I could, oh my God, study with Mirella Freni. And when she was doing the master classes and talking to us, she would always say, Pretty, you are like me. Look at your lips, look. And then she also recognized the naturalezza, the natural sound that I had at the time. And then she would say, calma, you have it. So I think more than anything, I was very, very privileged to have had her as well in the Pretty Army.
Who was it that advised you not to be greedy? I heard that you had said one of your mentors told you to be content with just enough successes along the way, not try to win,
Yes.
you know.
Yes, it was Elias Zempetonidis. He was an artistic director in La Scala, and then went to Paris Opera, and now he's in Napoli. He was one of the people when I felt like giving up and leaving this world of opera, found me and said, Pretty, what do you want to do? And then I said to him, I know that there's something in here, but I need to be taught and learn. And I feel like I'm not part of this world. So when I wanted to quit, he was one of those people who said, okay, let's move together. He actually was the person in the jury of Belvedere that gifted my prize to be in the academy. Hence the connection with Mariella De Via, continuing to study in Italy, and then eventually finding us together here. Otherwise, I wanted to quit, and because it was hard. It was hard.
Yes. You know, I know that you're doing master classes and things now, and I think that when you're able to share these things, it helps young artists, opera singers, or whatever people are doing, just to persevere and believe in themselves and to keep working.
Yes, and also I think more than anything, my journey is truly human. And art is imperfectly perfect, and human beings are humanly imperfectly perfect. And so I'm very grateful that I have found the courage to voice some of the things that are not popular.
Yes.
Because they are valid, you know, they are valid.
Yeah, I mean, many of us are very grateful for that, because a lot of times people just want to put the beautiful sheen and not share the depth and the authenticity that you share, just by the nature of who you are.
And also because of the nature of our world, we are becoming, you know, because of the screen and everything, the internet, we always want to show our best. Our best is beautiful, but also our not so best is beautiful.
Yes. Well, we have one more clip from the film, because I know people want to talk about your Violetta. And I just want to say that people, if you want to put some questions into the chat, we'll see how many questions we can propose to Pretty before our time finishes. But one more clip from the film, one of my favorite parts.
So, does anybody have a question that they would like to ask me? You can even ask me in Zulu, it's fine.
My name is Lauretia. I wanted to ask you is it possible for a student from South Africa to study abroad music?
It is absolutely, absolutely possible. And South Africa is on the map on the global stage. So when you say that you're coming from South Africa, the world will be listening. Everything is possible. Please, 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 don't ever give up. I'm not an exception. I'm just like you. I can tell you each and every village has a Pretty somewhere. Just that our generation now has the privilege of time and possibility, whereas people who were behind us, they didn't have the same privileges.
Remember, we couldn't go into the cinemas, you couldn't go into restaurants, you couldn't go into hotels. When you had to buy something, if you traveled, you had to go buy at a little small window. You couldn't go in the front door. So unless you've lived through that, you can never imagine what it was like. So I am just so happy and so glad that our young artists don't have to struggle like that anymore.
When you first saw a cut of the film, you teared up when you looked at those students' faces. You mentioned that at the beginning of this conversation. What are you feeling when you look at them, and what do you see possible for them, and how do you try to express that to them?
Love, compassion, because when I looked at them, they looked at me as an exception, because success is perceived as belonging to some. And when I looked at them, I cried, literally, I cried, and wanted them to know that I am just one of them. I'm not I was probably lucky that my dad had a TV in my house to be able to be connected to my dream and gift. But I wanted them to know that they should not look down at themselves because of their circumstances. Everybody is struggling with something somewhere, whether from the tip of Africa, Asia, Australia, the US, UK, anywhere in the world. The struggle of being a human being in this world is real for everyone. But we are overcomers. We have something in us that allows us to dream the impossible. And we can, and to bring it to our physical world. And I wanted them to know this because they were so glorifying my journey and seeing me so far up there. And all I wanted was to be so close to them, wherever they are, so that they too can find themselves and shine as much.
In the Q&A that you did with them, I know they were just asking about studying abroad, but they were very curious about your world travels. And I think through you, they have like a pathway to not only find out about your experiences, but to imagine that they might too be able to do something like that.
Absolutely, because my town is one of the most smallest towns. I mean, it's growing, yes, but it's not like being in Johannesburg or Cape Town or Durban. No, I'm actually coming from the village, from the most obscure places, that it's truly extraordinary what this journey has allowed me to experience life globally. So that's why I had that connection with them in a way.
And you made that comment that there is a Pretty in every village. And Mama V was saying that she's so glad that those students don't have to struggle like she had to. I mean, what a trailblazer she was in her time. It seems like, there are more and more South African artists coming up. And you had told the students that when people say you're from South Africa, people are like, yes. So there just seems to be more awareness of what South Africa has to offer the world.
Yes, and I meant it from the most humble part of my being, that there's a Pretty anywhere, because Pretty is being so celebrated in the world, on the global stage, and I'm very grateful for that.
Mr. Sithole told us that they were pretties before Pretty, but the time had to come for them. And that he said the future is out there, that these students just have to grab it. And I love that you so often use the word privilege. And I've heard you talk about the fact that it could be someone else, but you're the one who's standing there in the spotlight, sharing. Virginia shared with us, oh, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, it's true, because, most of the questions that I've always been asked, did you want to be famous? Did you want to be glorified? And when I was on the quest of the Pretty journey, it was always the curiosity about sharing this incredible joy and love with each and every soul that I can possibly be with. And so it's more often than not perceived that as a global somebody, you are just an icon. But my journey, my being, is human.
Well, one of the audience members here, Andy Wong, asks, how do you emote true feelings from your soul, like sweet innocence, tenderness, and love?
Oh my God. I think it's because in some core of my being as a human being, even if I feel good or not so good when I'm performing, that essence is the one that connects me and you through my gift.
And Virginia told us an Afrikaans saying about the tallest tree catching the most wind. So with your gift comes great responsibility, but also great pressure. How have you learned how to manage all of that and nourish yourself? And I know you give a lot and you're very generous. So is that something that you're still grappling with? Because your career, it's just high profile, it's pressure, you're traveling, you don't get to go home and have your mama's food, but maybe every 2 years. How do you manage?
Well, I have a pretty army. I have a pretty army. I was just talking to my colleague, I think yesterday, and saying that nobody can truly understand what we are doing. We are doing a supernatural thing. We cannot see it, but we can see it. We cannot touch it, but we can touch it. And it is an experience that is beyond our physical world. We give life to human beings. I don't call them characters. I don't call them anything else. They are human beings who have had a life, and I have the privilege and honor to give them voice and give them life. And in that, as I'm performing, there's this connection from one human being without a body and one human being who has a body and much more possibilities than them. And so it is truly extraordinary. It is truly, truly, truly extraordinary. I'm very grateful that I have this possibility to express life in this manner.
Well, I have to say, as you know, I was in the house for your San Francisco Opera debut the other Friday, and it was beautiful and devastating. I mean, you were able to conjure up on the stage, and you're fond of saying, because this is the first Traviata that's new for the San Francisco Opera in 35 years. And I always see your posts that say, I was only 2.
Yes.
Yes. What was it like working with Shana Lucy, the stage director, and Eunsun Kim on this new staging?
It was the most liberating experience ever. I have sung Traviata. The first one I did was a new production by Simon Stone in Paris, in Garnier, 2019. I jumped in after the pandemic in Barcelona, Spain. And then I had the privilege to sing it as well in Hamburg, Germany, and Palermo, Italy, and recently at the Royal Opera House in London, as well as in Napoli. And I have to say, even with all the most extraordinary experiences then, this is the first time I feel like I'm enjoying the first act. Any Violetta would tell you that the most devastating hurdle or mountain is that Sempre Libera. Oh my God. And I asked René Fleming, I asked Mariela de Villa, I asked Montserrat Caballé before she passed away. And all of those divas, they said to me, Pretty, you're just going to have to learn to be uncomfortably comfortable with the first act. Even Verdi himself said, non sono sicura di quest'atto. He didn't like it. He didn't like it. He liked from the second act onwards. And it's so extraordinary as a performer. I feel that centeredness in the second act and the third act much more than the first act.
I see. Wow. I didn't realize that the composer felt that way as well. We want to see a few of these photos so that people get an idea of the new production, which is sumptuous. And there are still 5 performances on. I get to see it once more before the end, but I know you have another performance starting tomorrow. But these are a couple of the images, which are stunning.
I don't think I've ever seen myself in any photo that smiley in the first act.
You're enjoying it.
I truly, and I thanked Shona so much, and I thanked Maestra as well, because truly this has been like who ran the world, girls. From the Maestra to the director to the leading lady, I had truly an extraordinary experience, which we hope that as human beings, all the people who would ever think of this truly be as happy and excited about it as we have been.
Let's see the last act photo. Yes. So it's just devastating. Angelo watched the live stream. I don't know if you heard from him directly. He said that you gave the kind of performance that only you are capable of, but he was particularly moved by the final act, which in many ways he finds the most difficult. And I have to say that the line where you tell Alfredo that if his coming back hasn't saved you and restored you to health, that nothing will, it's just completely devastating in that moment. The audience, I've been to so many, openings and debuts and stuff. The opening night audience, well, we're going to just play the little clip of part of your bow from the opening night, and then want to hear from you about that. As you look at that moment, I mean, you looked kind of stunned and overwhelmed by the audience response.
I was. And if I can just go back for a second, with all these acts in Violetta, my favorite act is truly the third act, because Verdi allows the soprano to be not only an instrument of magnificence, but also he allows us the challenge to be an actress. So probably that's what happens. And so there's an incredible thing that always happens every time when that act finishes. I remember it from Paris, from London, Palermo, and I'm always, when I receive thanks from each and every one of those audiences in the world, they are truly thanks. It's not a diva saying, yes, I was glorious or anything else. It's a human receiving gratitude with the utmost humility, because when I take the bow, I'm thinking, do you remember you did that wrong note? Oh my God, you didn't hold that one longer. Oh my God, you messed up there. So in my brain, there are those negative thoughts. So more often than not, when I come to take a bow, it's for me the most difficult, because I know my vulnerabilities. I know where I came short. So to even show myself, to receive thanks, is the most difficult. And so when the audience react that way, especially in a debut, in a new production, beautiful production, in a new city that I have never been, that I have absolutely loved to be in the company so glorious, San Francisco Opera, I was stunned at the reception more than ever before. I almost fell into the into the golden curtain.
I know.
Because it was so overwhelming and unexpected. I did not think about it at all.
I know you posted after that about falling into the glorious golden curtain, but it was like a physical force, because I was shooting a little video and I thought, oh, let's see what the bow is like. And just see, it was like it pushed you back. There's like, we really love you. Thank you in that moment.
Yeah, it really did. And it was so funny, because when I talked to my team and I shared the clip and I explained to them what happened, they can relate. And they said, you know, the physical response that loved you so much,
yeah,
it's a response of the gift and your everything that you give them. So in all of the bows you've ever done, that might not have actually been physically experienced, but in that moment, we had a physical evidence of how I felt received that so much love.
Yes. Are you saying though, in a typical night, when you've done what you've done for us and with all of your colleagues, that in the moment before the bow, you're replaying in your head the things you wish you had done?
Always. More often than not, when I finish the Sempre Libera, I'm in tears because I'm beating myself up. Why didn't you have more courage? You had planned that you were going to do this. Or in the second act, you were not, why didn't you have courage enough to be in your soul? You were thinking too much technique. Or in the third act, that addio del passato, the reading of the letter could have been much better, more human, more connected. So that is what is going on in my mind.
Wow. Wow.
Hence the reaction of like, unexpectedly, they were like, we love all of that, all of it and more. And I'm like, oh, I don't deserve it.
One of my other favorite moments, because you mentioned Act 2, the drama of it, it was so real. And in the moment where you've agreed to give up your love and and then he comes back. And that moment where you say, you love me, Alfredo, you love me, and he doesn't understand what's going on. It was so honest and true. And I just felt like you were the most incredible actress. I just felt how destroyed she was.
I'm so grateful for you to say that, because out of any part of this role, me as a human being, this is the most part where I have always choked, cried, couldn't imagine how anybody could sing that part, because these human beings who love each other so much and who are like yin and yang, there is a miscommunication. She can tell him what has happened, but he doesn't understand. And this is, for me, the most devastating part of the opera.
Yes, because she's someone who's so strong and true, and she's about to lie and leave him. And she knows.
Yeah. And she rarely lies, right?
Yes. Right. We're coming near the end of our time, and I just wanted to say to people watching, if there's a question, a burning question you have for Pretty, don't hold back. This is the moment. Yes. And let me give you one question, or actually, sorry, I'm putting it up on my phone. Hold on. Do you have a question from Teresa about future roles? I read in Opera Magazine that you will be singing your first Cleopatra in Giulio Cesare in Frankfurt. Any other new roles you are excited about, or roles you dream of performing in the future?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the question. So I've just debuted All the Leading Ladies from the Tales of Hoffmann by Offenbach in Valencia, Spain. And then I will be doing another production in Hamburg. So I'm looking forward to that. And then, surprise, I will be singing my first Gilda. So I'm looking forward to that. Normally people would sing Gilda first and then Traviata. So it was the opposite for me. So I'm looking forward to that. But long term, artistically, the voice as it's growing, I'm really looking forward to more repertoire. I'll be doing my first Marguerite in Faust, but in the bel canto repertoire long term, I'm looking at The Queens by Donizetti. I'll be doing my first Maria Stuarda, which I'm very excited for that, and also Anna Bolena in long term. And the ultimate dream is to be Norma one day, as far as bel canto repertoire is concerned. But there is, of course, the possibility also expanding to Puccini. So I'm looking forward to my first Mimi. So if I do well and I'm wise, we could all truly experience an amazing long-term journey if I make good artistic choices as far as repertoire is concerned. And this, I think we are on it with my team and my management.
And you had said that you had good advice from Montserrat Caballé about roles. Can you share that with us?
So I had a masterclass with her, and then I won her competition in Saragossa. And then she said to me, Pretty, you must remember one thing. You have to honor your instrument in the present, meaning don't sing roles that with a voice that you will have. Sing roles with the voice that you have in the presence. That way you will always, always, always be on time, because that way, that's the longevity of any artist, and also humility. It's not always about what you want. It's always about the gift. And the gift, more often than not, knows more than the person.
All right, we have a question from Jeff. While portraying Violetta is a huge pinnacle for any opera singer, do you wish you could sing more roles that are conceived and written as Black women?
Wow, that's an amazing question.
It's Jeff saying he's very smart.
Oh, this is an amazing question. Thank you so much. You know, one of the things that I've always have come back to is how I grew up from my parents and how I was protected from the social standards of our world, in a sense that we are human beings, irregardless of the skin of our color, the background, and whatever. So I've never thought of myself as different than you, anyone. I've always thought it's human and it's possible. And I'm for it.
So maybe that will be in your future if we're lucky. You know, Jeff and I, one of the things that we kind of talk about is this challenge of bringing your full self into your life and into your work and as an artist. And that's one of the things that I loved about what you did at the Met when you incorporated your Zulu into the performance of Daughter of the Regiment. In the feature, Mama V says it's such a proudly South African moment, but it happened very organically, right? That you ended up speaking Zulu.
It really did. I am fluent in more than 7 or 8 South African languages, but also in Italian. And I love French very much, but I'm still very young as a French speaker. Mais je parle un peu, oui, je peux comprendre parce que je chante en français et je l'aime, le langue français. Yeah, so there's that. But when I was doing La Fille du Régiment, there is this improvisation that happens when she's dealing with some business. At some point, because my French was so young at the time, I just filled it up with mumbling in Zulu. And they were like, yes, keep it. It was extraordinary. And as I said in some, and maybe most of the interviews, is that when an artist is on that stage, there's a big part of themselves that they bring. They are very present. And in that moment, more than ever on the global stage, I guess, at least at the Met, there was a true Zulu girl who brought a Zulu essence on a French opera.
Also, and I have to say this because your hair is so gorgeous, you had your own hair too when you did the Marie.
I did. I asked Laurent Perry. I asked him because that is so amazing. I asked him, and I think it worked out also because of the makeup of the production. I said to him, I don't think a red-tailed wig would work on me. Do you think we could use my hair? He was on board, and the Met was on board, and we made it up, and it worked out very well, which is actually extraordinary because I debuted it in Spain, in Seville, before I went to the Met. And that tradition now for my Marie, because I mean, who can supersede Natalie Dessay? That was like a mountain, you know? But it was extraordinary to have the openness from the director and the opera house to say, we have her and she has ideas and her ideas are valid. So we will say, fine, Pretty, you can have your curly hair. And actually after this Traviata, I'm reprising the role in Vienna Staatsoper, and then I'll be using my hair, which is truly amazing. And I'm very grateful for that.
Oh, wonderful. All right. Karen Hathaway asks, when will you be back for more performances at San Francisco Opera?
Well, well, I can share just a little bit. I heard from the grapevine that we are looking at something in 2025. That's all I can say.
Okay. That's a long time from now, but we'll have to be contented.
And time flies very quickly.
So I just want to say about, since we're talking about Zulu things, I love that you shared music, Zulu music, hymns and songs in this episode of In Song. I am still confused about Ekude, that it's the morning has dawned and we have no water, and that this is a wedding song. So you're going to have to explain this to me at some point, because it sounds so joyful, but there's no water.
It is joyful, but that's the thing, that the essence of an African being is that even through the circumstances that are against, there's always hope. There's always a beam of hope. And out of all the songs that I thought when we were putting all this together, Elena, together, I said, what song can I say? What song can I propose? And that song came to mind. And it is one of the most celebrated songs in each and every wedding, when a bride is being brought to the groom's house, and it is joyful. Yeah. So in a way, joy always supersedes the circumstance.
Okay, that is profound and beautiful. And I feel I know a little bit more of where you come from just hearing that. It's very touching. I just want to thank you for the time and your generosity of spirit. And, you know, your parents, you were there in the living room in the corner when they were talking about you, but I know that your mother was saying that she hopes that God will pour all the blessings on you and give you everything you desire. And I think we all are so just in awe and gratitude of everything that you give. And the Reverend Dlamini, he told us the story that the church was always clean. Church was always clean. How was the church clean? Nobody knew. And then he found out it was you who would sneak in at night and clean the church, but you never said anything about it. And I think that's just the kind of human being you are. So we're very grateful.
Thank you. And I have to thank my mother, because that obedience, even besides my mom, but my grandmother teaching me those songs, I don't think if I was obedient to either my grandmother or my mommy, those good works would have never led or resulted on the Pretty journey. And for us to be together here, and the joy that I find each time when I get to connect to each and every soul that is truly being entrusted to my office.
Well, on behalf of everybody watching and everyone who's going to get to see your Violettas, and thank you, Pretty, for everything.
It's truly an honor and a privilege, and joy, always.
All right. Thanks. And thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you so much, Elena. Thank you, everyone.